everyone. My name is Jessica Grenlin, and today I'll be presenting to you three very prominent business leaders: Tim Cook, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. Specifically, I'll be presenting to you their leadership styles, why they may have these leadership styles, and my opinion on these leadership styles. For my first presentation, I talked about Tim Cook, who is the current CEO of Apple, which in hindsight was a very good decision, considering I'll also be speaking about Steve Jobs in this presentation, and he was the founder of Apple. To begin, I'm going to give a brief history of these men, so perhaps we could understand where they came from and how they became the successful businessmen that they are. To begin, Tim Cook was very academically successful throughout high school and college, and graduated college with a master's degree. Again, he is the current CEO of Apple, but when he became the CEO of Apple in 2011, after the death of Steve Jobs, many people doubted his ability to keep Apple running in the same capacity that Steve Jobs had. Tim Cook came out as a gay man in 2014, and although being gay has become more accepted in society today, he was scared that people would not believe that he could run Apple simply for the fact that he was gay. But he surprised them and has since made very positive changes to Apple. Tim Cook welcomes diversity and acceptance of all types of people in Apple. Where Steve Jobs, as we will see, has been known to be more harsh and put more pressure on employees, Tim Cook is known to be more caring and more open with his employees. Tim Cook also believes in teams and leadership in these teams. Tim Cook will put his employees in teams and allow them to run these teams themselves and make decisions without involving upper management. Tim Cook takes the opinions, ideas, and solutions of his employees to heart before making any big decisions. Next, I'll talk about Bill Gates. We know Bill Gates founded Microsoft and is now worth more than $100 billion. But he got his beginning when he was born in 1955 in Seattle. Bill Gates was known for being a very intelligent child and a very intelligent man. He attended Harvard University, but actually dropped out of Harvard so he could pursue his dream of trying to make Microsoft a worldwide company. After he dropped out, he worked on Microsoft full-time. As I will go into further detail later, Bill Gates was also known for being more harsh and putting pressure on his employees. Though more recently, Bill Gates has stepped down from Microsoft and is instead focusing on his charity with his wife. Steve Jobs was also born in 1955 in San Francisco and sadly died of cancer in 2011. Like Bill Gates, he also dropped out of college. He attended Reed University, but then dropped out so he could focus on Apple. He co-founded Apple with his friend Steve Wozniak in 1977. He actually started Apple in a garage. It started off as a very small business. And at the time of his death, he was worth more than $10 billion. As again, I will go into further detail later, Steve Jobs was known for being more of a harsh businessman and was not very professional. He often put a lot of pressure on his employees and had a me attitude. To begin comparing these people's leadership styles, I'll first begin with comparing Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, who I find quite similar in their leadership styles. Throughout the movie, The Pirates of the Silicon Valley, it was mentioned many times that both of these men were very imaginative and focused on wanting revolution. Both of these men were also seen being very selfish and persuasive, even to the point of manipulation. They often put pressure on their employees to get stuff done or to work harder. It was depicted in the movie that Steve Jobs' employees were working an insane amount of hours a week to make Steve Jobs happy. They were more loyal to their business than to their employees and often followed the phrase by whatever means necessary. Steve Jobs started out by being not a very professional businessman, meaning that he would not wear tuxes, was not very well groomed, but as he was trying to get apples out there to the world, he became more professional. But once Steve Jobs became in a more powerful position, he began to become unprofessional to the point where when he was interviewing employees, was asking them inappropriate questions and just showing that he was in power. Bill Gates was also manipulative because he lied to IBM about having the operating system. Bill Gates was planning on having this operating system but did not yet have it complete. And Jobs also exhibited manipulative behavior by pitting his employees against each other so that they would rely more heavily on himself. On the other hand, Tim Cook was more calm and caring to his employees, and Gates and Jobs were more selfish and harsh when dealing with their employees. Cook exhibited a theory Y management style, meaning that he believes that employees can control themselves and have leadership in teams. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, on the other hand, were more theory X, meaning that they believe that employees need control and that they have to look up to their leader. Cook had a high concern for productivity and people, where Gates and Jobs had a low concern for people but a very high concern for productivity. Cook had believed in collectivism, meaning we as the team, whereas Gates and Jobs were more focused on individualism. Basically, what can you do for me? What will make me more powerful? And what will make me more successful? Cook was more consolidative. He wanted his employees to be more involved in the decision-making processes and ideas and brainstorming, whereas Gates had more personal and exchange influence. Gates was a little bit better by being a little bit more loyal to his friends that helped him start Microsoft, so he kind of used that personal pull to get his friends and employees to listen to him, but also had exchange power, saying, we will be able to make lots of money from this, we'll be able to benefit from this very heavily. Jobs, on the other hand, exhibited pressure and legitimating power. Jobs was often seen yelling at his employees, yelling at his friends, basically putting a lot of pressure on them. Like I mentioned before, having them work a crazy amount of hours, pressuring them to be the newest and best that they could create. But then he also had legit power because he was the founder of Apple. In my opinion, Tim Cook was a better leader, a leader that I would want to work for. He's more caring, cares more about diversity, wants the teams to feel like that they actually have a voice in the Apple company, and takes everything that they say into consideration. Where on the other hand, Bill Gates has a little bit more care towards his employees, but at the same time, he was very selfish and manipulative about the ways that he got his employees to work. And he also was stealing stuff off of Apple. So it's hard to trust a leader whenever you know that they are doing things that are either illegal or unethical. And Jobs was a very harsh leader. He would often be seen screaming at his employees or putting pressure on them, being very unprofessional, making situations uncomfortable for people, and just putting too much pressure on the employees to the point that it was hard for them to even be productive because they were not getting enough sleep, they were not being able to spend time with their families. Obviously, all of these men are very successful. They all are worth millions to billions of dollars. Tim Cook is still working to this day and is getting his net worth up. Bill Gates actually stepped down from Microsoft and is more focused on his charity with his wife, which I think says more about his leadership style now that maybe he grew out of his harsh leadership style and is starting to see that he can benefit off the money he made, even though he may not have made it in the most ethical way in the beginning. And sadly, as I said, Steve Jobs passed away in 2011. Up until the time of his death, he was a very, very successful man and kept Apple coming out with new products and being one of the most successful companies in the world, even though he was more of a harsh leader. In my opinion, if I had to pick which man that I would want to be working for, it would be the man that I chose to do my first presentation on, Tim Cook. I feel like that is more of the leader that I would want to work for and the leader that I feel comfortable working for. Some people may want to work under Bill Gates or Steve Jobs for the fact that they feel like they need to be controlled and they need to have someone constantly pressuring them to get stuff done. Maybe they have low motivation. But for myself, I feel that I have a more high motivation, so that Tim Cook having a high concern for me and letting me make some of the decisions would be better for me. Thank you for listening, and if you have any more questions about these men, I'd be happy to explain. Thank you.